Whenever we want to send data from one controller to another, and we would like for that data to be continuously updated at a specified period, we can use produced and consumed tags. So here we have a controller project for a high-performance compact logics controller. We would like to send data from this controller to another compact logics controller. We begin by creating a produced tag that contains the data we would like to send. Produced and consumed tags must be created at the controller scope. So right-clicking the controller tags, we select New Tag. To keep things obvious in this example, let's name the tag Produced Tag. Now we select Produced from the Type dropdown. In this case, we will simply send a double integer. Clicking the Connection button allows us to configure the number of controllers that we expect to be consuming this data. In this example, we only have a single controller consuming the data, so we set the value to 1. Clicking the OK button, our connection is configured. Clicking the Create button creates the tag. Now we can move on to the project for the consuming controller. When we go to set up the connection for our consumed tag, we will need to specify the producing controller. To do that, we will need to have the producing controller within our I/O configuration. So let's add that first. Right-click in the relevant network, we select New Module. Now we can browse to and select the appropriate controller. Clicking the Create button takes us to the New Module dialog. Let's name the controller Producing Controller. Now we simply configure the remaining parameters to match the physical controller and click the OK button. Having added the producing controller to our project, we can now move on to creating the consumed tag. Again, consumed tags must be at the controller scope. So we right-click the controller tags and select New Tag. Let's name this one Consumed Tag. From the Type dropdown, we select Consumed. For this tag to receive the data from the producing tag, it must have the same data type as that producing tag. In this case, the producing tag was a double integer. Now we click the Connection button to set up the connection with the producing tag. We begin by selecting the controller from the dropdown. This is why we added it to the I/O configuration prior to creating the tag. Now we need to enter the produced tag name from the other project. Because the tag is in a different project, we cannot browse to the tag. It is imperative that the name specified here matches the actual name of the tag within the other project. The RPI allows us to specify the period between data updates, just as we would with a hardware RPI. For this example, we will just maintain the default 20 milliseconds. Now we click the OK button and then the Create button. Let's download to our controller to test operation. Notice that because the producing tag does not yet exist in the other controller, the I/O shows as not responding, just as it would if a connection to any other piece of hardware had failed. So let's go back to the other project and download it to the producing controller. Returning to our consuming controller project, we see that the I/O OK indicator is now on. Right now, the producing tag is writing a value of 0 into our consumed tag. Let's go into the producing controller and change the value. Checking back with our consumer, we see that the value has indeed been updated. Notice that if we change the value of the consumed tag, the producing tag overwrites our change within the RPI. Let's try another example, sending some data from this controller back to the other. So we take our project offline and create another controller scope tag. This time, let's send an array of data. So we'll name this tag produced array. We again need to select produced from the type dropdown. For the data type, we will send an array containing 125 reals. This is the maximum size allowable for a single produced tag. Since we only have a single controller consuming the tag, we once again configure our connection for a maximum of one consumer. Clicking OK and Create, we see that our array is created and we are ready to download to the controller. Returning to our other project, we again need to go offline to create the consume tag. Because we are creating a consume tag that must be pointed to the producing controller, we begin by adding the controller to the I/O configuration. Now we create the controller scope tag. Here we name it consumed array. Next, we select the consume type, and then we match the data type to the data type of the producing tag. Now we can configure the connection and create the array. Finally, we download to our controller. Expanding the producing controller's project, we can write some values into the first few elements of the array. Back within the consuming controller, we see that the producing tag's data is indeed being written to the consuming tag.